In the beginning, the world was not painted white, nor was it made in the image of empires. Beneath the surface of centuries of conquest and imperial brushstrokes lies a truth long buried. What if the greatest figures from the Bible, the prophets, the kings, and even the Messiah, were not pale shadows, but radiant sons and daughters of Africa? Stay with me, for the truth is far older than empire, bolder than myth. Why is it that we in the 21st century still grapple with the perception of divine and heroic figures through a lens clouded by colonial history? Could it be that for millennia we've been deceived by the stories we've been told, while the truth lay hidden beneath layers of paint and power? What if the very faces we thought we knew, those of Adam, Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, and even Christ, were not at all as we've come to see them? Could the image of holiness have been hijacked by the brush of empire? In this video, we will lift the veil on the hidden heritage of the Bible's greatest figures. From the first man to the Messiah, we'll explore the evidence, the stories, and the truths that have been concealed for centuries. Together, we will discover that history is far richer, deeper, and more powerful than what we have been led to believe. Are you ready to challenge the myths and uncover the truths that have been hidden in plain sight? Join me as we explore the forgotten roots of humanity's greatest stories and learn why the ancient prophets, warriors, and kings whose words and deeds changed the world may have looked far different than we were told. In a world where images of greatness have been distorted, it's time we rediscover the true legacy that flows through the veins of these figures. Stay with me, for the truth is just about to unfold, and once seen, it can never be unseen. Adam. The dust was dark. In the beginning, God formed man from the dust of the earth. But what if I told you that this dust was not just a neutral shade of pale, but a deep, rich, radiant black? Yes, Adam, the very first man, wasn't born of a pale complexion, but of the fertile, dark soil of the earth, a reflection of the land from which he arose. This is the story of humanity's origin, and yet the truth has been obscured for centuries by the false narrative that we are all born from a singular, homogeneous image. From the start, our roots stretch back to Africa: black soil, black earth, black skin. If we truly understand this, we begin to see the incredible depth of our connection to the land, to our roots, and to each other. Why have we been taught to ignore this truth? Why have generations been led to believe that skin color determines origin or worth? When we look at the earliest societies, those in Mesopotamia, close to the cradle of civilization in Africa, we see a place rich with diversity. The first people were not homogeneous. They were as varied as the land from which they came. The very first human beings were dark-skinned, and this is backed by archaeological findings and genetic research that shows early humans likely had darker skin. As time passed, we started to see genetic mutations that led to lighter skin, but this was not the starting point of humanity. The story of Adam is a reminder that we are all part of the same earth, shaped by the same forces, and born from the same dust, dark, rich, and full of life. So, what lesson do we take from this? The story of Adam teaches us that our true origins are rooted in unity, in a shared connection to the earth that transcends skin color. It calls us to remember that no matter our appearance, we are all equally formed from the earth, equally divine in our origin. As we reflect on the diversity of humanity, it is crucial to understand that the foundation of our existence is not defined by the pigment of our skin, but by the shared dust from which we are all made. Let this truth heal us, unite us, and remind us of our common humanity. Abraham, the father of nations, was never European. Before the world ever heard of white Jews, there were black Hebrews. Abraham, the father of nations, is a figure that holds great significance in the story of God's promises to his people. But the man we call the father of faith was not the European figure often depicted in art and literature. No, Abraham's lineage is rooted in the Afro-Asiatic world, with strong connections to African peoples. This is evident in the Y-DNA markers and the historical records that trace his lineage back to Africa. Many myths surround the identity of Abraham. Some would have us believe that his descendants were exclusively European or light-skinned, but this is far from the truth. In reality, the people of Abraham, his sons, his tribes, his descendants, were people of color. The Bible paints Abraham not as a figure of European descent, but as a man of the Afro-Asiatic world, whose family, descendants, and people were integral to the creation of nations that would shape the course of history. This revelation challenges long-standing misconceptions. If Abraham, the patriarch of faith, was a black man, how then do we understand the people who came from him? Wouldn't his descendants also reflect his heritage? The legacy of Abraham was not just one of faith. It was a heritage of culture, identity, and unity among African and Semitic peoples. As we begin to unravel these truths, we can see that the very foundation of God's promises to his people was deeply intertwined with African roots. Let this realization awaken us to the beauty and power of our shared legacy. Moses, raised in Pharaoh's court, reflected his people. Moses, the great leader who led the Israelites out of Egypt, was not the pale European figure often portrayed in Western art. He was a man deeply connected to his African heritage, having been raised in Pharaoh's court as an Egyptian prince. It's important to understand that Moses was not only a product of Egypt, but a reflection of the African people he was born among. The evidence of this is found in the archaeological sites that depict Moses in Egyptian art, where he is shown as a man of color, embedded in the culture of Egypt and the broader African world. Think about this. Would a pale child blend into the Egyptian royal family? Would a man of lighter skin have been accepted as the grandson of Pharaoh? No, Moses was a man of color, someone who carried the mark of his heritage with dignity. The biblical story of Moses is not just about leadership and deliverance, it's about identity, culture, and a recognition of who we are, no matter where we are born or what role we are meant to play in the world. The depiction of Moses in Western art and culture has been overly influenced by European ideals, distorting the rich African roots that defined his life and purpose. The story of Moses reminds us that our heritage does not define our destiny. Moses may have been born into a world of privilege in Pharaoh's court, but his heart and soul were deeply connected to the plight of his people, the Israelites. As we reflect on his story, we learn that greatness does not come from external appearances or royal lineage alone, but from the courage to stand up for what is right, for what is just, and for what is true. Moses' life calls us to embrace our own identities, to stand firm in the face of adversity, and to remember that our heritage is a powerful part of who we are. Joshua, the black commander, who shook walls. Joshua, the warrior who led the Israelites to victory at the Battle of Jericho, was a man who defied expectations. He was a descendant of slaves, a leader who rose from humble beginnings to become one of the greatest military commanders in history. Joshua's story is not just one of military strategy, but of unwavering faith and belief in the promises of God. His victory over Jericho was not just a testament to his tactical genius, it was a manifestation of his unshakable faith in the power of God. The walls of Jericho fell not because of Joshua's strength alone, but because of the power of belief. The 7 rounds around the city were not merely a military tactic, but a spiritual act, a demonstration of faith in God's word. This act of obedience, of faith, became the key to unlocking the victory that shook the very foundations of the city. Joshua's story teaches us that the true power of leadership lies not in brute force or military might, but in trust, faith, and the courage to act on what we believe in. In the same way, our struggles today are not just about overcoming obstacles or fighting battles. They are about trusting in something greater than ourselves. Joshua's victory teaches us that faith is a mighty weapon, one that can break down barriers and open doors that once seemed impossible to cross. His story calls us to trust in God's promises, to take bold steps even when the odds seem insurmountable, and to never underestimate the power of faith in action. The story of these men is more than just history. It's a blueprint for how we are to live our lives. They teach us about identity, faith, leadership, and the strength that comes from knowing who we are and where we come from. These ancient figures are not just figures of the past, they are our ancestors, our guides, our inspiration. As we continue our journey, let us hold fast to these lessons and remember that the legacy of these great leaders is not just in the stories they left behind, but in the example they set for all of us today. Let their lives inspire us to rise up, stand firm, and never forget the power of who we are. Samson. Strength rooted in identity. Samson, the mighty warrior, is often remembered for his extraordinary physical strength, which is said to have been rooted in his hair. But what if the true source of his strength was not just his long locks, but his deep connection to his heritage, his identity, and his purpose? Samson's strength was not merely a supernatural gift, it was a reflection of his unwavering commitment to his divine calling. Born in the land of Canaan, a place where the African roots ran deep, Samson's story is one of resilience, courage, and the unyielding power of identity. When we look at Samson through the lens of his heritage, we see that his strength was more than physical. It was a manifestation of his faith in God, his dedication to his people, and his understanding of who he was. The land of Canaan, where Samson was born, was home to many African ethnic groups, and his identity as part of that community was integral to his mission. Samson was not just a man with extraordinary physical power, he was a man called to lead his people with the strength of his spirit. But too often, we interpret Samson's story through a narrow Western lens, focusing on his physical strength and neglecting the deeper spiritual and cultural significance of his heritage. Samson's true power came not from his hair, but from his connection to his roots, his people, and his God. His hair was a symbol, a reminder of the vows he made to the Almighty. In this sense, Samson's story calls us to reflect on the importance of knowing who we are, where we come from, and the strength we draw from our heritage. Samson's fall, driven by his loss of faith and the betrayal of Delilah, teaches us that without a strong foundation in our identity, our strength can falter. Just as Samson's physical power faded when he lost his connection to his purpose, so too can our strength in life fade when we lose sight of our own identity. The story of Samson is a powerful reminder that true strength is found not just in the muscles of our body, but in the clarity of our purpose, the richness of our heritage, and the courage to stay true to who we are. David, the warrior poet. With ruddy skin. David, the man after God's own heart, is one of the most iconic figures in the Bible. He was a shepherd, a warrior, a poet, and ultimately a king. But his story is often told with an image of a pale, fair-skinned young man, when in fact, David's skin was not white. The Bible describes him as ruddy, a term that refers to a reddish or brown complexion, which is far more consistent with the skin tones of Semitic and African peoples than with that of European figures. This image of David, the man who would be king, the warrior who defeated Goliath, has been misinterpreted over time, leading us to envision him as something other than what he truly was. David's story is deeply intertwined with his identity as a man of color. The inscription found at Tel Dan, which is believed to reference the House of David, provides archaeological evidence of his existence and confirms his lineage. This inscription, coupled with the descriptions in the Bible, reveals that David was likely a man with a complexion much darker than what we have been led to believe. His ruddy appearance aligns more closely with the people of the Near East and North Africa, the lands that shaped his life and leadership. David's strength and valor as a warrior, his poetic soul, and his deep connection to God all came from a place of identity. His story teaches us that our heritage is not something to be ashamed of, but something to be embraced. David's rise from a humble shepherd to the king of Israel was not simply a result of his military prowess or his poetic talents. It was because he understood who he was. He understood the strength that came from his roots, his faith, and his identity as a child of God. David's story also challenges the misconceptions about race and heritage in the Bible. Just as we often misinterpret the true identity of David, we also misinterpret the identities of many others who have shaped the history of our faith. David's life teaches us that it's not the color of our skin or the outward appearance that defines us. It is our faith, our character, and our commitment to God's purpose for us. The man who defeated Goliath was not just a warrior. He was a reflection of God's power and love, a testament to the fact that greatness comes in many forms, and all of us, regardless of skin color or heritage, are capable of great things. Solomon, wisdom, draped in ebony. Solomon, the wise king, is often celebrated for his unparalleled wisdom, his wealth, and his leadership. But behind Solomon's fame lies a deeper truth. Solomon, the son of David, was a man of color. The Bible tells us in the Song of Solomon that he says, "I am black but comely," a powerful declaration of his identity. Solomon's wisdom was not just a gift from God, it was a wisdom rooted in his understanding of his own heritage and the world around him. His connection to the African continent, through his mother, Bathsheba, and his marriage to the Queen of Sheba, is undeniable. The Queen of Sheba, known for her kingdom in the African region, was a powerful and wealthy woman who recognized Solomon's wisdom and sought him out for counsel. Their union was not just a political alliance, it was a symbol of the deep connection between Africa and Israel, a relationship that shaped the course of history. Solomon's wisdom, which was revered by kings and queens from all over the world, was a reflection of his understanding of the human condition, the complexities of life, and the importance of unity among peoples of all races and backgrounds. Solomon's life challenges the long-standing narrative that wisdom, greatness, and divine favor are somehow separate from the African heritage. His story reminds us that the wisdom of the world is not confined to one race or culture, but is a gift available to all who seek it. Solomon's identity as a man of color, his connection to Africa, and his wisdom that transcended borders speak to the universality of human experience and the power of embracing our heritage. Solomon's declaration of being black but comely serves as a powerful reminder of the beauty and diversity in recognizing and celebrating our roots. It challenges us to embrace our identity fully, knowing that our true worth is not defined by the color of our skin, but by the strength of our character, our wisdom, and our relationship with God. Solomon's life calls us to embrace the richness of our heritage, to seek wisdom, and to understand that greatness is not determined by our external appearance, but by the depth of our understanding and the breadth of our compassion. The stories of Samson, David, and Solomon are not just stories of ancient times. They are timeless lessons that speak to the heart of who we are today. They teach us about identity, strength, wisdom, and the power of understanding our heritage. As we reflect on their lives, let us remember that true greatness comes not from the world's standards, but from our connection to our roots, our faith, and our purpose in this world. Let these stories inspire us to stand firm in our identity, to embrace our heritage, and to walk boldly in the path that God has set before us. Elijah, the fire prophet. From the land of Canaan. Elijah, the fiery prophet, is one of the most striking figures in the Bible. Known for calling down fire from heaven to defeat the false prophets of Baal, Elijah's story is one of dramatic moments and intense faith. But beneath the surface of his power and authority lies a man deeply rooted in his African heritage. Elijah was not just a prophet of Israel, he was a man of Canaan, a land where the African connection was undeniable. His fiery spirit reflected the passionate, unyielding faith that burned within him, a faith that was nurtured by the people of Canaan and the rich traditions of the land. In the story of Mount Carmel, Elijah challenges the prophets of Baal to a duel of faith. He calls down fire from heaven to prove that the God of Israel is the one true God. But the power of Elijah's act was not just in the fire that fell from the sky. It was in the unshakable conviction that came from knowing his identity and his purpose. Elijah's faith was not rooted in the power of Israel alone, but in the God who created the heavens and the earth, the God of Africa, the God who had shaped the land of Canaan and its people for millennia. Elijah's story teaches us the power of faith in action. When we truly understand who we are, our heritage, our roots, and our divine purpose, we can stand firm in the face of opposition. Elijah's courage to challenge the false prophets of Baal is a reminder that we must never back down from standing for truth, even when the world around us is steeped in falsehood. Just as Elijah called down fire from heaven, we too are called to ignite the fire of truth, love, and justice in our own lives. Let this fire burn within you, illuminating the path to greatness, to understanding, and to divine purpose. Daniel, the dream interpreter in a foreign land. Daniel, the dream interpreter, is one of the most remarkable figures in the Bible. Taken as a young man into the Babylonian exile, Daniel's story is one of resilience, wisdom, and unwavering faith. Despite being far from his homeland, Daniel remained true to his identity, refusing to assimilate into the Babylonian culture. His wisdom and ability to interpret dreams were gifts from God, but they were also deeply connected to his understanding of who he was, a man of God, deeply rooted in his heritage. Daniel's ability to interpret dreams was not just a gift for the king of Babylon. It was a reminder of the power of understanding, of seeing beyond the surface to the truth that lies beneath. His wisdom transcended the confines of Babylonian culture. While others in the king's court might have been blinded by the allure of power and wealth, Daniel remained grounded in his faith and his identity as a child of God. The Bible teaches us that true wisdom comes not from the world's standards, but from a deep connection to our divine purpose. Daniel's story calls us to remain true to our identity, even in foreign lands. It challenges us to stand firm in our beliefs and to trust in the wisdom that God provides. Just as Daniel was able to interpret the king's dreams and bring clarity to the confusion around him, we too are called to bring clarity and understanding to the world around us. The wisdom we carry is not just for ourselves, but for others, to guide them toward the truth. Let Daniel's story inspire you to trust in your own gifts, to stay true to who you are, and to use your wisdom to bring light to the world. Jesus, from Nazareth, not Norway, Jesus the Messiah, is the central figure of Christianity, and yet the image of Jesus we often see in Western art is one of a pale European man with long flowing hair. But is this the true image of Jesus? The Bible gives us clues about his appearance. In the book of Revelation, we are told that Jesus had hair like wool and feet like burnished bronze. This description does not fit the image of a pale-skinned European man, but rather someone of Middle Eastern or African descent. Jesus was born in Nazareth, a place that was far removed from the European world. His lineage was deeply connected to the African continent, as the region of the Middle East has always been a crossroads for Africa, Europe, and Asia. Jesus' appearance, as described in the Bible, reflects this cultural and geographical reality. He was not a man from Norway or a Scandinavian land, but a man who lived in the heart of the African and Semitic world, a world shaped by the sun and the soil of the earth. Jesus' story challenges the long-standing Eurocentric image of him that has been portrayed for centuries. It calls us to reflect on the true nature of his identity, not just in terms of physical appearance, but in the richness of his heritage and his message. Jesus was a man who transcended borders, who brought a message of love, redemption, and salvation to all people, regardless of their race or background. His message was universal, and his identity was deeply rooted in the culture and land that shaped him. Jesus' appearance and his story are a reminder that our understanding of him must go beyond the surface. His teachings were not about race or ethnicity, but about love, compassion, and salvation. He broke down the barriers that divided people and invited all to come to him, regardless of their background. The story of Jesus calls us to look beyond the surface and to recognize the true essence of who he was, the Son of God, sent to bring salvation to all people, a man whose identity transcended race and whose message of love transcended time. The kingdom has no color, but it knows its roots. For centuries, the world has painted holiness in porcelain skin and golden curls. But the truth cannot be changed by brush or empire. From Adam to Christ, the bloodline of greatness has flowed through melanin and the desert sun. These figures, Adam, Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, Elijah, Daniel, and Jesus, are not just characters in a book. They are a part of our shared heritage, a heritage that transcends color and culture. Their stories are our stories, and their wisdom is a gift that belongs to us all. The kingdom of God does not recognize color or ethnicity, but it knows its roots. It knows the truth that has been buried beneath centuries of empire, and it calls us to remember the richness of our shared heritage. As we look to the stories of these great men, let us be reminded that our identity is not defined by the color of our skin or the land we come from, but by the faith we hold, the love we share, and the purpose we live for. The stories of these great men challenge us to look deeper, to seek the truth that lies beneath the surface, and to embrace our heritage with pride. Let us not worship the myths painted by empire, but the men and women who shaped history through their faith, their courage, and their unwavering commitment to the truth. The kingdom has no color, but it knows its roots, and these roots are deep, rich, and beautiful, transcending time, place, and race. Let us stand firm in the truth of our heritage, knowing that we are all part of a greater story, one that began long before us and will continue long after us. As we close this journey, we are reminded of the timeless truth that has woven itself through the stories of Adam, Abraham, Moses, David, Solomon, Elijah, Daniel, and Jesus. These are not just stories from a distant past. They are living truths, speaking to us across the ages, urging us to connect with our heritage, our faith, and our purpose in this world. They are a call to understand our origins, to embrace the divine light within us, and to walk confidently in the path that has been laid before us. When we look back at the lives of these incredible men, we see more than their physical appearances or the roles they played in history. We see the strength that came from knowing who they were, the unshakable faith they had in God, and the legacy they left behind. They were men who stood firm in the face of adversity, who were not swayed by the world's false narratives, and who ultimately, through their faith and actions, changed the course of history. The beauty of their stories lies in their universality. They transcended borders, cultures, and time. Their courage, wisdom, and connection to God were not bound by race or skin color. Their legacies remind us that we are all part of something much larger than ourselves. Each of us has the capacity to tap into the same divine strength, wisdom, and love that these men exhibited. Their stories are a reflection of the power within us, waiting to be awakened. We live in a world where the truth is often obscured, where myths and misconceptions about our identity and our heritage continue to shape how we see ourselves and others. But the stories of these biblical figures call us to look beyond the surface, to question the narratives we've been taught, and to embrace the richness of our shared human experience. It's time to reclaim the truth about who we are, about where we come from, and about the power we hold in our hands to create a better world. As you reflect on these stories, I invite you to share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. What did you learn from the lives of these men? How have their stories impacted you? Do you see yourself in their struggles and triumphs? This is a space for us to connect, to share, and to learn from one another. I'd love to hear your insights and reflections. If this video has resonated with your soul, if it has brought light to your heart during these challenging times, I humbly ask for your support. Your energy, your encouragement, and your engagement are invaluable to me. Every like, every subscription, every comment, these small gestures help to fuel this mission of sharing the Word of God and spreading truth. Your support keeps me going, reminding me that what I'm doing has meaning and purpose. So, if this content has brought you closer to the truth, closer to understanding, and closer to the divine, please consider sharing some of that light back. I am so grateful for your time and presence here. Every bit of support, no matter how small, is a gift I hold in my heart. Your encouragement means more than words can express, and it drives me to continue this work. Thank you for walking this path with me, for allowing me to share these powerful truths with you, and for being a part of this incredible journey. May the stories of these great men inspire you to stand firm in your faith, embrace your heritage, and walk boldly into the future. Let us remember that we are all connected by a divine thread woven together by the same Creator. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for being here. Together, we can continue to spread truth, love, and understanding. May God bless you abundantly.